It's upon us, folks. First off, spoiler warning for this episode, the pilot episode, the first episode of the show Loki. When I talk about episodes of shows, I like getting spoilery. It's just kind of my thing. So you've been warned. So the newest series among MCU TV, otherwise known as Phase 4, which is fine. I'm actually really enjoying that, so that's cool, especially now the show is Loki. Whether it's villain Loki, anti-hero Loki, Loki established himself early on as a memorable villain in the MCU. And now he has his own show because, you know, when you're Loki of Asgard, why would you not? And we all knew it was set up from Avengers Endgame when Loki got the Tesseract. He was like, peace. And it is. It shows that at the beginning of here, as we pretty much figured it would. Then the TVA, which is pretty much the adjustment bureau for the MCU timeline, they show up, they're like, no, you gotta come with us because that can't be happening. And Owen Wilson plays Agent Mobius, who's pretty much this relatable, everyday guy beat agent. You know, he's like a beat cop for the timeline adjustment bureau. And he's like, let me talk to Loki. So it's him trying to get through and connect with Loki. It's a speed run of the plot, but that's pretty much the gist of the episode. That and the TVA is such a boss fucking place that they use Infinity Stones as paperweights, which per the explanation in Avengers Endgame means that drawer full of stones means there's a lot of realities out there that just got screwed. But if they're here, I guess it means it was supposed to happen, so eat shit, reality. Sorry. Sometimes fate is not a kind mistress. You get the gist of what this organization is with something that totally reminded me of the Mr. DNA animation in Jurassic Park. This cute animated breakdown that's easily digestible from all ages. 5-year-olds, 95-year-olds. Everyone's like, oh, cool. I get it. Something about those animated breakdowns. They work. But I love the premise of this show because we're dealing with a Loki who hasn't experienced anything we've seen Loki experience past the first Avengers movie. He hasn't experienced the death of his mother. He hasn't experienced Thanos snapping his neck. You know, all of that hasn't happened to him yet. He's seen it on the TV of his life. He's still got that Loki ego, and I like the fact that Owen Wilson's character is just poking and prodding him. He's quizzing him. It's annoying the shit out of Loki, but he's trying to connect with someone we know is there. Owen Wilson's character thinks he's there, and Loki's really trying to hide it. But that connection does happen. You can tell when Loki plays the events of his life that he hasn't seen yet. He's hurting at the fact that he sees his mom die. Absolutely, it's not even hidden. But you can tell he's touched with the fact that he sees him and Thor standing shoulder to shoulder. And we were all waiting for it. We're like, dude, the tape of your life is right there. So when's he going to actually push play and see Thanos snap his neck? If there's a tape of my life right there, no, you should not watch that. You should not watch your death. It would sour the experience of life. But I still probably do it. I mean, how could you not? I don't know how you wouldn't. So he sees it. It hits him. Something that someone told him earlier in the episode, something that Owen Wilson tells him. He's not the star of his story. He exists, as Owen Wilson said. He's like, you exist to cause pain and suffering so others, the Avengers, can become better. Which is a rough lesson to learn. It's tough learning that you're a support character in the movie of your life. And at the end, Owen Wilson was like, hey, we need your help because the variants, I guess there's this variant. Variants are beings that go out of their timeline and start causing trouble. And Owen Wilson's like, we need your help, Loki, because the variant we're hunting, the one who's doing all this, is you. In which I was like, you mean Loki's Mephisto? I thought it, like, you know, that scene in the church and the little kid, and Owen Wilson's like, who did this? And he points to this stained glass window showing a picture of the devil, and I was like, oh, I guess people are going to get their Mephisto. But then I did think, like, all right, the horns could be Loki's helmet, though, because, you know, that makes sense. But after that reveal, I was then met with the thought of, wait, this is that episode of The Outer Limits. Right? That's what this is. I mean, not totally, but there's this episode of the Outer Limits series from the 90s where this guy, I mean, he has a shit life. He's having a really bad day of it. And anyhow, he's going to kill himself at work. And then he gets snatched through this timeline. And there's this other him who's created this machine that can do that. And he's like, hey, I need your help tracking down this evil you, this other you, who's gone on a murder spree. Loki is that episode of The Outer Limits. But what I loved most about this, because Tom Hiddleston is a great actor, and I've loved him as Loki, but we haven't gotten that connection with him, you know? He's had moments in the MCU for sure, but we've never gotten that connection. We've never gotten a breakthrough with Loki. I mean, Loki, for all intents and purposes, he's on the couch, man. He's in a therapy session. It's a very elaborate one dealing with multiverse and adjustment bureau cops maintaining the multiverse. This was that breakthrough moment. This was that moment where Loki comes to grips, comes to terms with himself. Like the scene where he's like, oh, this place is just an illusion done by the weak to maintain power. That was a projection. And he tells Owen Wilson, he's like, everything I do, the pain I cause, I don't like doing it. I do it because I have to, because it's an illusion brought on by the weak to maintain power. That's a huge moment. That and the emotion he was showing when he was seeing the timeline of his life that hasn't happened yet. But that does make me wonder, how's this gonna go down? Is Loki gonna learn lessons and then go right back to where he left off like he never left? So the Loki we see in the MCU movies after the Avengers, he's experienced everything in the show Loki. So he's kind of just fulfilling the timeline, even when he sends the dark elf down the path to kill his mother. And it makes that a bit more impactful. Like he had to send the dark elf there to fulfill the timeline, but he knows what would happen. Like he knew what was going to happen. I mean, the Tesseract has to go back, right? Because if it doesn't, then that timeline is screwed. Ancient One said so. But if the Tesseract was just going to go back where it left off, then couldn't the Avengers have just waited for it? A lot of possibilities as to where this show could go. That's why I feel like this is the most engaging pilot episode of the MCU shows that they've done yet. WandaVision, I ended up getting sucked into it later on, but it wasn't the pilot episode that did it. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was like, yeah, it's like watching an MCU show, so I enjoyed it. But this has some next level intrigue with some timeline fuckery. I really enjoy that. Also shows that between WandaVision, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the new Spider-Man, which is heavily rumored to have Spider-Verse in it, and Loki dealing with the harbingers of the timeline. I'm pretty sure Marvel Phase 4 and Phase 4 through 6, if the Infinity Saga says anything about it, usually these whole storylines take about 3 phases. It might just be about the multiverse and timelines and possibly destroying all of that existence among all of it. You know, the little things. You know my big takeaway in this episode? My big like, holy shit, are you serious? Loki was DB Cooper. I don't know, that's just kind of awesome. I did a report on DB Cooper in 6th grade, and now we have the answer. I mean, it's not like it can be disproven. The Bifrost snatching up DB Cooper, sending all the bills flying, that's as good a theory as any. Alright, so the first episode of Loki, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.